Now, many people play with their hair, don't they, especially when they're anxious or have things on their mind. But for some, this habit can develop into a really serious condition called trichotillomania, where the hair is repeatedly pulled out, leading to hair loss.
That is a picture of our next guest, 21-year-old India Barnes, who's had the condition for 10 years and only recently received treatment for it.
I was like 12 years old and I just noticed like a really small patch on my head. When I got to sort of 15, 16 and it got worse, that's when I started feeling a lot worse about it. You're doing it to yourself, so you feel guilty about it and you feel bad about it, but there's not really anything you can do about it because you just keep pulling. I just accepted that I had it. I didn't actually go for help until last year, so I had it for 8-9 years before I did anything about it.
India is having her mesh adjusted today. What it does is it covers a pulling site. The hair that is actually on her head is lifted through the mesh, locked into position, and hair is introduced to that site and blended with her own so it can't be seen.
When you first get it put on, you go from being completely bald to suddenly having a full head of hair. I study dance, so before I'd have to spend ages pinning it all up, whereas now I can just shove it in a hair bubble. Having it taken off today, seeing how much it's grown, I guess it's amazing knowing that it'll be my own hair soon.
Yeah, well, India's here now along with psychologist Laverne Antrobus. You look wonderful. That weave thing that they did is brilliant, but of course you are hoping that it will one day be your real hair that looks like that. How did this begin then for you? You were about 12, weren't you?
Yeah, I don't really know how it started, and I think it's like that for a lot of people. I was just 12, you know, completely normal life, and then one day noticed a bald patch just about that big on the top of my head, and at first I panicked and I was like, you know, where's that come from? Why has that happened? And then slowly started to realise that actually I was doing it to myself. I was just pulling it out.
And was this upsetting because it was, you know, coming into the teen years and feeling conscious of your appearance?
It was upsetting, but I don't know, at the time I kind of just ignored it. I just thought, you know, it's something I do, you know, it's just a habit, I'll just leave it, like it'll go away. But then when I was about 16, I sort of realised it was getting worse and it wasn't going away.
So what was the feeling then? You obviously had an urge to pull your hair out. Was there a sense of relief when you did it?
Sometimes. I mean, sometimes it's completely subconscious. I won't even notice I'm doing it. And then after you'll see a pile of hair and you go, oh my God, I didn't even know I was doing it. And then other times...
It's not painful though, could you not...
I can't feel it anymore. I think at first I could, but you kind of become desensitised to it. So, but then when you're stressed, I think that's when it gets worse. That's when you notice you're doing it and you can't really stop.
Looking at those pictures as we were there, it did get to a pretty extreme stage for you, which I think makes me wonder why you waited 8 years before seeking help.
I just accepted it. I just thought, this is part of my life. This is, you know, this is just something I'm going to have to cope with. I'll just have to cover it up, you know. I just dealt with it. I just lived with it.
Lived with it. Laverne Antrobus, is this unusual?
Well, I think it's not as unusual as we might think. You know, as a psychologist, I think, you know, often I'm in schools and teachers are alerting me to the fact that they might have concerns about a child who's hair twiddling, hair pulling. I think it's important to say that for a lot of very young children, it's a phase, and actually quite ordinary behavioural techniques like distraction or just being educated about it can really help. But for India, I think it developed into something that really took over in some ways and is quite hidden. And I think that's the dilemma for sufferers, because you know, they have this impulse to do something, but they're not actually sure why or what the trigger is. And I think that what you say about not having a trigger, it's hard for us to really think about that. You know, that there wasn't a reason, but it became something that was quite habit forming, quite compulsive, and does need a clear attention.
And unlike other problems, there's a way, obviously with talking therapies that will help, but you know, you have treatments, actual physical treatments that can help you deal with the issue as well, which is something that you won't always have, I guess, when the issue's something similar, I guess, psychologically.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard about like the Lucinda Ellery thing, I just thought like, wow, that's something that can really help, because with the mesh, it's not just covering your own hair. Like, I can't get to my own hair, I physically can't pull it out anymore, so while it's also covering it, my own hair grows back underneath, so...
Which is great. I mean, how is that going to work then in the future, though? If you're still not sure of the trigger points, how can you be sure that you won't revert to that behaviour
Yeah.
when your hair's growing?
Well, they always say it's the easy part is getting the hair back, it's keeping it that's hard. But I guess with the system on, you know, you go and you can't get to it, so that breaks it in a way. And then I'm also getting cognitive behavioural therapy as well, which at the moment it's sort of learning the patterns when I'm doing it, how I'm feeling when I'm doing it, and then just trying to break the cycle.
And Laverne, I'm sure you'd urge parents at home that might be able to see signs of this perhaps to do something about it. What would you say to them?
I think definitely. I think you know, as a parent, you do notice things about your child, and you will know whether or not things have tipped into something that is beyond what you might expect. And I think, as India says, you know, just a bit of twirling and fiddling, that's one thing. But when you're noticing that there might be a sort of a portion of hair or little patches, and it's not just on your head, you know, children
Maybe keeping it like a hair diary, like people do with food, and noting when,
that's what I
you know,
do.
when things occur. Yeah. Well, good luck to you.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
hope it all works out for you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in and talking
Thank
about
you.
it. Thanks, Laverne, too.